Right. And by the way, for anybody that has to audition, auditioning is a skill also. So auditioning a lot is going to be good for you. I did a lot of auditions, and I think that that's why I was very comfortable with them as well, because you learn how to kind of channel any nervousness. I don't remember being particularly nervous at that time. I guess it was just youth and things were working out well, but you have to learn how to on the spot very quickly channel any kind of doubt or nervousness into an energy that is going to serve you.
Hey there, I am Monique B. Thomas, your host of Monique on the Mic, and this is episode 27. Now, this is a particular episode because I'm having an A-list dancer and a very good friend of mine, Asha Thomas, on the show today. Now, before you click away thinking this has nothing to do with singing, hold on, because I really want you to hear what she has to say. She talks about how important it is to have support, having a community, learning how to navigate the system that's in place in the entertainment industry, transitioning with age, and also motherhood and artistry, and so much more. You're going to want to listen to this because I think you're going to find some similarities as what it is to be a singer also in the entertainment industry. Let's check it out. Everybody, please welcome the wonderful, fabulous Asha Thomas. Asha, how you doing?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for having me.
Listen, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule between juggling family, two boys, and a busy artistic schedule. It's hard to pin you down. So I'm really glad.
You know what? I'm happy to get away. This gives me someplace else to be. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. It's like, it's hard because when you're an artist and you're independent, we tend to accept as much work as we can get. And then we're like, I need a break. But then sometimes we're afraid to take a break. It's like, out of sight, out of mind. And it's like, if people are like, you're not available for too long, then they kind of forget about you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say that this phase of my life has imposed a break on me. These two kids that I have, because they're young kids,
right.
They are 2 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
So I have had no other choice but to slow it down.
Right.
Slow it down considerably and to make peace with that and to be okay with that. Before something typical for me would be 6 weeks someplace doing rehearsals, during a creation period. I can no longer do that.
Right.
I can no longer do that.
6 whole
They're
weeks.
too young.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I can no longer do that. And I don't even want to do that.
Yeah.
Because, my priorities have shifted.
Mm-hmm.
I have other responsibilities.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot of adapting and acceptance, because this is the opposite of what my life was looking like
before,
probably 5 years ago.
Right. Well, since you jumped into it, let us jump into what it's like being a creative and being a mom, right? Like the sacrifices that come with it, or do you feel like it's a sacrifice?
Yes. I mean, sacrifice is, I just feel like there are different phases of everybody's life.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't fight against that.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you're going to run into problems. And so I feel like, where I feel good is that, I'm an older mom.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have kids until my 40s. So I had an incredible amount of time to do everything I want to do, to float around, to create, to live for myself.
Right.
And that is not the phase that I'm in now.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I think maybe it's easier for me to reconcile myself to the phase that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
But there are challenges, absolutely. And I think that we're all just looking for a balance, whatever that looks like for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The particularity is also that, I had my child and COVID happened 2 weeks later, literally. So there was that. So, things naturally and unnaturally, because COVID was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
But things were already kind of taking a shift for me. And so it's about how to kind of respond to that. and to keep the artistry alive in spite of the fatigue, because little kids are tiring AF.
Yes, they are.
How to find the motivation, because sometimes when I have free time, I do not want to do anything.
Sure.
It's like, I absolutely have to honor that part of myself that needs to
rejuvenate,
answer to no one.
Yeah.
Answer to no one, and to rejuvenate, and to, kind of rebuild, because when you stop for a while, you kind of have to build yourself back up. That's what we're always doing as artists. I think we're always kind of reinventing, recreating different versions of ourselves. So it's I think that's what the challenge is. And like we were saying, I don't know if that was before we started recording or not, but like, time is money. And like, when you have kids, you don't have a lot of time.
You don't have a lot of money.
You don't have a lot, and you don't have a lot of money. So it's like your resources are a bit more limited. And let me tell you, my situation here is set up where I don't have a lot of family here. So so that's also kind of part of it. Myself and my partner, we've had to juggle a lot of things, and he moves around a lot.
Yeah.
So we both can't be gone, so there's certainly like a balance that we're having to strike.
Yeah.
Just to keep things afloat.
Right.
So those are like logistic things, which will, of course, determine your artistic output.
Right.
How you approach your artistry, how much you can do with what you have.
Now, you actually used the word rebuild, and I think because you are a dancer, that has a particular meaning, because you have to be body ready for what you need to do. I mean, it's in a certain way, it's similar to me, because if I stop singing for a certain period of time, I'm not vocally ready, but
right.
What has it been like after the pregnancies, getting body ready?
Let me tell you, I was lucky enough to have really smooth, uneventful pregnancies. I felt good. And during them, I was dancing, not a lot, but I was dancing. I was on stage.
Wow.
5 months, 6 months, just up until the time where it starts looking weird,
Like,
They're like, why is that pregnant lady out there?
Yeah.
Like, ooh, she should be careful.
Go sit down. Have a cup of tea, herbal tea.
Put a pillow behind your back.
Right.
So, that's not to say that, obviously there are a lot of changes that are going on, but I was very fortunate in that way. And it was just crazy, because I remember with my second, it was a particularly swift recovery. I think the second one just kind of flies out. I don't know. That's not everybody's experience. But I remember maybe 6 weeks later, I was already off on a train to rehearse.
Wow.
With him.
Okay.
He was attached to me because I was breastfeeding and everything.
Okay.
And so I was able to kind of just fall back in line with the work that I had been doing. But it is, and people are always like, oh, that's so admirable. Oh, you're such a warrior. I'm like, yeah, I did it, but it was hell.
Right.
It was hell, because, a newborn has needs, and, especially if you're breastfeeding, all these different things. And I was trying to deal with him at night, get up and rehearse.
Yeah.
After the rehearsal, everyone's at the bar. I'm like, bye, y'all.
Yeah.
I'm going back home to now mother,
right. Right.
and maybe sleep a little bit and then wake up and start this again.
Right.
So, you can do it, but there's going to be a cost.
Yeah.
And so I never put down anyone that decides, you know what, I'm not going to try to be balancing all these things. I'm going to take a pause, be it a year, be it 2 years, or however long, and I'm going to do what feels right for me.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy.
No, it's not easy.
No. And then the question that you asked about, keeping the body ready. I am not a good example. Sorry, everyone, if you're looking for answers. I'm just here to say that, like, thank goodness for the 30-year career that I've had, that my body is so used to fitness and discipline and keeping a certain level of readiness, so that in those periods where I'm not as able to, be on it in those ways,
you have a capital of
it
readiness.
has saved me.
Yeah.
It has saved me. And I need to do more, and I want to do more. And I know that I will be able to do more as they grow. But it's just like, in those younger years, I don't know if you can remember, but it's just like,
yeah,
it's very difficult. So you do what you can.
Yeah.
You do what you can. And also like the kind of dance that I do now it doesn't demand the same things from me as probably the kind of dance that I was doing,
Okay, so you've shifted
I don't know.
in a different direction dance-wise.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, I've been in France now for 17 years.
Okay.
And what I do here is vastly different from what I was doing in the States.
Okay.
It's been much more conceptual. It's been much more improvisational. It's been much more collaborative, which means that you can bring to your work whatever it is you have at that time.
Okay.
In whatever capacity you're able to give.
Right.
And that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
Because also you can have a longer career. Yeah, I mean, it's more about, meeting you where you are and what you're able to offer.
Yeah, I was just going to say that sort of environment seems to foster self-acceptance, like where you are, because whether you had them kids or not, our bodies, and in my case, the voice, well, actually both, they change with time. And so the kinds of things that I want to be doing with my voice are very different than what I was wanting, 20 years ago. And I would say even able, although I'm not yet in my vocal decline, not yet at all. I like what you said about building that physical capital as to where you've had that discipline and that training for so long that your body knows. And so you're solid. You might be a little tired. But you're still solid. Whereas I'm finding that with singers, and this is always why I like to bring other artists from other mediums on the show to get a look into their process to see what things could we take from them that would be helpful. And oftentimes singers wait very long in their singing career to pin down a solid technique, if they ever do. Not just a solid technique, but a solid work ethic about keeping the voice to where it should be, which means that any sort of thing that's out of the ordinary or any sort of fragility is going to knock you way off your center because you don't know where center is.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The work that you have put in the past, that can literally carry you.
Yeah.
I mean, in those emergency moments, I don't think it's meant to carry you for the rest of your life.
No. I mean,
but when life is lifing, and it will,
and it does,
it does. It can. It do what it do. Yeah. It can carry you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I love that. I think that's such a wonderful piece of advice especially for the up and coming singers or artists, and then for those that have been at it for a while and they're like, man. Because I actually just talked to somebody yesterday who's been at it for a while, and she's like, I really haven't settled in with my technique. I'm like, you might want to get at it before that decline happens, because when it's even if you just think of it from a muscular standpoint, we all know now that older people can do bodybuilding. We're seeing this all the time, 78, 80-year-olds winning these contests. But it's not just about the physical aspect of it. It's about the point that as you get older, your body does atrophy. You lose muscle and you lose bone density. And so if you haven't built that in, when you start to lose, you don't have that much to go off of. So, then we've got injury and we've got life or death situations that start to happen. Maybe not for the voice. Well, that depends on how you look at the voice. If the voice is your life
or death of the voice.
Right. If the voice is your life and you haven't built up that capital of sustained work that means that your voice is stable, then when your voice does start to decline, it's going to decline swiftly, and probably it's going to be very hard to deal with.
Right.
So I want to stick a little bit more with this about motherhood. I'm wondering about your state of mind, because you seem very calm about all of this. Because there could have been.
Do I?
You too. But well, to be fair, for the
No.
For the listeners, to be fair, I've known you for a while, and I've had the pleasure of working with you in Africa, which was just amazing. And I like to watch people, even though I talk a lot. I actually do watch people, and what I've always liked about you is you're calm, you're gentle, but you're very clear on what it is you want and you don't want. And so, people always know where you stand. There's never like, I don't know about that. No. But you do it in a gentle way. You always seem very decided about things. And so I wondered, how did you come to be that way? Because I don't know about you, but artists, we're a little kooky. We're a little kooky. We can be a little kooky.
I'm happy that you think that of me, because I mean that's a quality that I think a good leader should have. I mean, everybody wants to be led by someone who is collected and can take leadership in a calm way and a decisive way. So, and in this particular case, for the listeners, we were doing a project in which I was kind of leading the group. So, if you thought that. Yeah, I mean, before I had kids, I would have said the same thing about myself. Because I always felt very this is just my temperament. This is my, I'm not a fiery person by temperament, by nature. I don't even like it. Like that's a emotion that I have a lot of, that I'm very uncomfortable with and that I've had to come face to face with in motherhood.
Right.
Is kind of anger and aggression.
Oh, wow.
So these are things because that's just not how I like to move.
Right.
And so, and I generally think of myself as that type of a person. It's calm and kind of even keeled. Now, the motherhood piece will put a mirror up to you or, will kind of get to things that are unresolved in you. And I think that anger, impatience, dealing with the irrational.
Kids will bring it all to you.
Yeah, because I've never had to come face to face with that. All my life, I've moved on my own and have only kind of dealt with, adults in my career, or, you don't deal, when you're kind of moving along solo, you're just dealing with things mostly that you want to deal with.
Right. Right.
And so, this new part of my life has made me, really reflect on how I deal with like ugly emotions, or what to me is ugly, because now I feel like fire is there for a reason. Fire moves things. And so I've had to had to evaluate my relationship with anger and channel it correctly.
Wow.
And so it kind of surprised me, actually, like, because all of the things of motherhood, especially when you're, and I feel absolutely supported by my partner. He does quite a bit, but the fact that we are just two people without our family trying to do a lot, it's a lot of pressure.
Let's give a shout out to Loic. Shout out.
Yes. Hey, babe. Thank you for being you. Thank you for,
and that's important.
Going into the, it is, because I see it a lot around me where it's not, there are a lot of women having to shoulder a lot on their own.
No support.
And then you're trying to be an artist as well, or an entrepreneur, or whatever it is that you're doing. You're just trying to take on like way too much stuff. But back to these emotions and, where it puts you mentally, like I've had to kind of reckon with, you know what? You are angry and you don't know how to properly express that. For literally the first time in my life.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the anger comes up on a bodily level because simply you've got this vampire, and I love my kids, but when they're completely helpless, they are vampires. They're sucking life from you, literally, figuratively, because they need what they need and they need it now. There's no reasoning with a crying baby. And that's how they survive, is to cry. And so not getting enough sleep, that in itself will throw me personally completely off. It throws off my eating. Right. It throws off my moods. And of course, just you're lethargic, and then you've got to be Susie Homemaker. It's not really compatible. Like there's a flaw in the system.
Yeah, and I think that it's also, I'm saying anger, but it's that's only part of it. I think it's also kind of how you deal with stress,
anxiety,
extreme stress, anxiety. And these are things that are not only just, I mean, these are emotions that come up due to external circumstances, but this is also completely hormonal, and it's also completely neurological. Like these are just very kind of biological reactions to the situation that you're in. And anxiety and stress and, depression and, all these different kind of feelings. Absolutely not just anger, but things that, and I think that a part of a big piece of this is your support. Because I think that you feel at your wit's end and absolutely overwhelmed when you just don't have enough community to kind of support you during this time. I mean, it's a huge shift.
It really is.
Because, we can roll along and we can kind of on the outside seem as though, she's added a couple of kids to the situation, but she's still moving and doing this and that. But it changes you fundamentally.
Forever.
Forever.
Yeah. I like to think of it kind of as bringing on an emotional soup. I like the idea of emotional soup, because if you think of vegetable soup, you might have some potatoes in there, some carrots, some tomatoes. They're all in the soup. It makes this one big soup, but you got it all. So depending on the spoonful today, today's anxiety. Today is I'm angry and I don't know why. Today is I'm about to cry my eyes out and I don't know why.
Yeah, because the funny thing is, and talking about like mental health, is the thing you can feel completely schizophrenic, because there's one point where you're like, get me off of this moving train. I don't want to do it no more. 10 minutes later, you're like, tears in your eyes. Thank you, God, for these beautiful blessings. These angels, let me go kiss their faces, like in the span of 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
And back again.
So you're like, what is going on with me?
Yeah.
And then 10 minutes later, you're back to like, okay, I'm leaving.
Yeah, like
where's my bag? Where's my bag? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's all the stuff that people, sorry to cut you off, it's all the stuff that people don't talk about when they talk about kids. Like, kids, you're going to love them. It's the most incredible thing in your life. It's the most incredible love you've never known, like the love of loving kids. It's like you've never known the anger that you could possibly have when a kid does something that you're like, oh my gosh, not today. Like when you're already running late for work and you've got to take your kid to the babysitters, and they have no more clean clothes. It's the last pair of clean clothes is on them that fit, right?
Right.
And they do a massive doo-doo, and it's everywhere, like explosive doo-doo. And you just like I'm not gonna lie, you want to throw your kid down the steps. You don't do it. You don't do it, because there's still some semblance of logic in your brain.
Child's.
But you want to. You're like, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. Not today. Why today? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But there's that emotional soup. So you feel like the way that you're able to deal with it is having a good partner that supports you in that.
Well, I mean, that has its challenges as well. Sure. Because, I mean, the thing that I didn't take into account, because I kind of figure, okay, having a child is going to be tough. But then there's the kind of relationship piece that I hadn't calculated or hadn't considered as much as, like you say, nobody really talks about these things.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that you don't know the kind of mother that you're going to be. You don't know the kind of person that you're going to be once these kids arrive.
Right.
In addition, you don't know the version of your partner, who that will be.
You don't know them at all.
Once these kids, you don't know at all. And neither do they about themselves. Yep. So once these kids come, you are encountering people that...
Yourself and them.
yourself, who you're just discovering in a certain way, and your partner, who you are discovering in a certain way. You know what I mean? So it is all very complex.
Yes.
And yes, thank God he is as dedicated and involved. I don't even want to say involved. These are his kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not,
Yeah.
you know, but he is, if he could have breastfed these kids, I think he would have.
Oh, wow.
You know, sometimes we had to kind of get out of our own way. It's like, you know, we're kind of stepping on each other's toes trying to do stuff, but
Wow.
I'd rather that
Yes.
than, you know,
Than
the
the opposite.
alternative. You know what I mean? But it's just the, you know, how to keep the relationship stable
Right.
and healthy so that we can also mirror something to these kids that's not going to, you know, mess them up.
Yeah.
And so that's another of the kind of the stressful part is, you know, trying to do right by your kids, you know, not really knowing what you're doing, because do we really know what we're doing? I know maybe there's some people out there that do.
They're lying.
I'm just,
they're lying. They're straight up lying. Because there is,
they're lying.
Even if you read the book, the book is a book with finite situations in it, and it's never going to mirror exactly what you live and who you are and who the partner is and who those kids are. There's just so many variables to it all. I don't think there's anything that can prepare you for it. But I love that, you know, you're talking about all these different dimensions of it, because then you've got your relationship with yourself, your relationship with the kids, your relationship with the partner, and the partner has those same things to deal with as well.
That's it. It is complex.
It's extremely complex.
It's a web of relationships, dynamics, and having to have grace for all of those different moving parts.
Right. Now, speaking of grace, do you practice gratitude by any chance? Is that something that's part of, because I'm trying to understand whether it be with motherhood or outside of motherhood, what is it that grounds you and keeps you sort of sane? What kind of practice do you have for your mental health? Because being an artist is taxing. It's challenging.
It is. I am extraordinarily optimistic by nature.
Right.
And I think that you cannot be optimistic without being grateful. It just doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work. I mean, you have to know that life is for you, that things are going to work out for you, because look how it has.
Oh, wow. Wait, say that again.
Look how it has.
Go ahead and say that one more time for the people in the cheap seats.
You have to know that life is for you and will work out for you. And the proof of that is because it already has.
Wow.
I mean, I write a lot. Like I am someone that believes in manifesting and writing things and speaking things, and that words are very important, in particular the written word. I used to write a whole lot. And there have been many times where I would go back and look at something and I was like, is that before it happened or after it happened?
Wow.
That's how much it came to fruition.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
You know, so I absolutely believe that there is a power in that. And even when things like, you know, and I, you know, people have it much worse than I do and have had in my life. You know, I feel like, you know, I don't go to church much anymore, but I feel like the hand is on me. You know, I feel like I've been guided thus far, and I feel like, you know, my path has been laid before me. And so I walk forward with confidence.
Right.
And I try to remember that, especially in this motherhood journey. You know, sometimes that's all you have to hang on to.
Wow. Yeah. Would you consider yourself more spiritual or religious?
At this stage of my life, I would say spiritual, but I really feel like I don't feel like I need to make really the distinction between those two, because I think there's something so, how can I say? It's just, I don't feel like the semantics of those things are what's important. I have faith in this thing that is bigger.
Yeah.
that is for me.
Right.
You know, and I think as artists, we also have to kind of remember that, because there's going to be a lot of no.
A whole lot of no's.
So you kind of have to grasp onto the notion that what is for you is not going to escape you.
Right.
You know, I think you don't have any other choice but to kind of hang tight to that, because otherwise you're going to despair.
Right. Okay.
You are going to give up, you know? And what's interesting is that, I mean, this was a harder lesson for me, because I feel like in the earlier part of my career, I was, for example, the audition queen. There was not an audition that I didn't do that I didn't get.
Wow.
And I'm not, it's not even being boastful. This is living in New York. You might go to an audition that has 200 plus dancers, and New York has
Cattle
the highest
calls.
level.
Cattle calls.
A number on your chest.
Mm-hmm.
We don't, not even your name. There's nothing that identifies you outside of what you are bringing in front of people.
Wow.
And I would get that job.
Look at you.
If they needed 2 dancers out of 300, I would get that job. I was very comfortable in that environment. I learned very quickly. And that always kind of worked out for me. And, you know, I went from Juilliard, I went to Ailey, then I moved to France. And a little bit later on, you know, I might go to an audition and no, it didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, then I was like, well, what's going on?
Right.
Is there something that I'm not doing right? Is this not the right place for me? And it was just that I was learning later a lesson that a lot of people learn
earlier.
much earlier.
Okay.
And these are valuable lessons, because, I mean, are you going to tie the worth of your artistry with the yeses?
Or the no's.
Or the no's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big deal. That's a big deal, because I think it's really hard not to, because those yeses pay the bills. And those yeses do feed our ego. You know, at some point we've got to get a yes, because otherwise we're going to be like, well, what the heck is wrong with me?
Right. Maybe I should do something else.
Should I become a dentist, you know, or something, you know, a pole or something, whatever. But it is hard to not tie it. And yet somehow you have to find a way to say, what I try to say to my students and to myself is that every audition is one amongst many. So if you get a no, it don't matter, because it's one amongst many. Like, get it in your brain that no matter if you get a yes or no here, it doesn't even matter, because you're still going to audition somewhere else. Or the same thing for stage work. You know, when somebody says, oh, I bombed that concert. So what? It is one amongst many. And so if you only have one audition, then yeah, the weight of that one audition is very, very strong. But if you've set yourself up and say, no, I'm going to audition and be auditioning and get in the habit of auditioning and doing it, whatever it is I'm trying to do, so that it's not just once a year.
Right. And by the way, for anybody that has to audition, auditioning is a skill also. So auditioning a lot is going to be good for you. I did a lot of auditions, and I think that that's why I was very comfortable with them as well, because you learn how to kind of channel any nervousness. I don't remember being particularly nervous at that time. I guess it was just youth and you know, things were working out well, but you have to learn how to, on the spot, very quickly, channel any kind of doubt or nervousness into an energy that is going to serve you.
Right.
But I think that that's also the technique, because that's also an instance where technique is going to save you.
Right.
When you're feeling kind of shaky, if I'm sure vocally it's the same, you know, that's another instance where that can carry you through an experience where, you know, that hard work that you did before is going to pay off.
So you shifted towards technique, and I want to run with that for a second. How long do you feel like it takes a dancer to have a solid technique on average? Because I know everybody's a little bit different, but just from your point of view.
Well, see, now that's kind of a hard question to answer because it depends on what kind of dance you're talking about.
Okay.
A lot of times when people think of technique, well, before things are shifting, but we were always kind of putting it in a classical dance context.
Right.
Even with modern dance, the basis of what you will be doing would come from classical dance.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes many, many years. It takes many, many years. I feel like, probably 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
10, 15 years to really get a good solid technique. Whereas if you're working with a choreographer, you can pretty much do anything that they ask you to do.
Right.
But obviously these things depend on your natural talent,
Mm-hmm.
your work ethic,
Mm-hmm.
etc. Now you have dance. Well, I'm going to say movement. Movement is such today where it's kind of hard to pin down. It's become so hybrid, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
For example, now you can go to a performance in a theater and see hip hop dancers, which of course there is a technique to that,
right.
But it's a different kind of technique and a different kind of training. Or you might see a kind of physicality that's more like circus or acrobatics.
Okay.
So it's very hard to say. I mean, I would say that to master any technique is going to take you a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the professionals know, the experienced dancers know that the easiest things are the things that you always are going to have to work at. The things that are deceptively
the basics.
Simple, the basics. These are the building blocks. And once you start veering off from those, injury might come about, or, these are always things that you come back to. They're like your vitamins,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So it takes a lot of years, a lot of repetition. It's very rote. It's very, it's like a ritual. It's like a meditation. You kind of have to see it that way if you're somebody like me that does not like a lot of repetition. Mm-hmm. But when you want to excel at anything, you're going to have to reconcile with or kind of fall in love with the practice of it.
Oh, I like
that. Yeah, because because sometimes with dance and maybe singing as well, you just want to be free. You just want to like open the gates and let the horses out, right. Right. And just express. And that has a validity as well. We don't see it everywhere, but I'm not saying there's not a space for that. But I don't know. You have to ground yourself in a technique and in a practice. Mm-hmm. Even if it's letting the horses out, what is that practice like for you? It can't just be,
I
don't know.
I really love what you just said, because I think it's one of the key pieces that's missing for singers is mm-hmm. getting these basics down. Most singers come into my studio and they want to do what Beyonce is doing. And that's a great mm-hmm. endeavor. But you've got to remember that Beyonce has been doing this since she was a child.
Right.
And to expect to do the things she's doing with her voice after 2 voice lessons, it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. What you're talking about, what I understood, is you're talking about having the discipline to do the work so that you have these things available to your body. And it's the same thing for the voice. If I want to sing these high notes, if I want to sing these fast notes, these loud notes, or if I want to sing really fast riffs and runs, I have to have had practiced them a lot mm-hmm. before so that I don't have to think about them anymore. Can you imagine mm-hmm. if you had to think about how to do your pirouette? You wouldn't turn very fast.
No. Well, you know what I think is also interesting is that because, I've met a lot of dancers that have gotten stuck on technique mm-hmm. inversely. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so I think that there's always a balance where I think the wonderful alchemy is when you realize that the technique is important, the ritual, the repetition, the building of the blocks, but you do not lose the wild horses that want to come out.
Yeah.
So you have to marry those things together because we don't either just want to in dance anyway.
Yeah.
Once you flatten not flatten, because I don't know if flatten is the right word, but I think there's always kind of there's always kind of a little bit of magic or mysticism or wildness that we see in kids.
Yeah.
That we see when my son is like throwing himself around the floor and saying, "Look, mama, I'm dancing." You know, that has to also be preserved.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that, you know, it's about creating that harmony. Maybe it's giving structure to the freedom. But how I like to also think of it is that, I remember somebody used to say that technique is there so that you can be free.
Yes.
Technique is there so that you can do anything and everything that you want to do.
Yeah, that's a major struggle for students that come in for voice lessons, because they immediately want to get to style. They don't make the distinction between this is style.
Right.
This is, you know, what is going to set me apart from other singers, but it's not the thing that's going to make my instrument function up until my 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Yeah.
On the other hand, that technique is what is going to help you be able to manage your career vocally. And if you don't have that thing in place, all the style in the world ain't going to save you. Because don't nobody want to hear that. If you know, if you've got a 2-day vibrato and you're out of tune, you know, nobody's going to want to hear that. And so it's like,
absolutely,
putting those pieces together. Because technique in itself is not the goal. That is not the goal. It's just the means. Right. It's the means to get to those wild horses. I love how you said the wild horses.
Yeah.
And having to, the wild horses is that creativity that you were given at birth. I mean, and we have to foster that. We do have to foster that. And sometimes it can be challenging when you're trying to get discipline. Because I think that it's kind of hard, because creativity requires discipline also, because you have to show up and give it space in your life. You have to allow yourself to go off that way. And yet, in order to have higher art, if I can say it that way, and it's kind of ugly, but I'll say it that way. In order to get to high art, you do have to have some sort of discipline in place and technique in place. Otherwise, the thing you're presenting, it might be wild, but it's also sloppy. Right. It's also not palatable.
Yeah. Yeah, not structured. So
you just, I wanted to talk about the fact that, you know, you graduated from the illustrious Juilliard, and you glossed over the fact that you danced with the Alvin Ailey company. And I'm like, no. All my guests.
Let's circle back.
Yes, we're circling back, because I want all my guests to get their flowers. It's important. I want you to tell me about that, because, I mean, anybody that knows even the slightest thing knows the name Juilliard. You know, not anybody's just getting in there, and not anybody's just getting into Alvin Ailey. And you were there for how many years with Alvin Ailey?
I was there for 8 years.
8 whole years. So that says a lot about you. It's like, all right, yes, you're good at auditions, but you also know how to keep showing up once you get the job.
Oh, yes.
So tell us about that.
That's the hard part. So Juilliard, I mean, honestly, I credit my then director, Benjamin Harkarvey, who has since passed. Maybe like 15 years ago. Yeah. But because I like to tell people, I laugh, because the audition was, you take a class, but you also present 2 solos. And I presented one solo that was done to, Whitney Houston, I Want to Run to You.
Oh, wow.
So it's not what we really think about when we think of something that might get you into a Juilliard situation, you know. But I appreciate the fact that I feel like he was a man of vision as well. And he could see, you know, I'm not going to say like a diamond in the rough or something. I don't think I was rough or anything, but he could see someone in a particular context and see the potential. And the question was always, can this child dance?
Yeah.
Because we're going to train him up. I mean, you have to obviously have a strong base of technique to get into a school like Juilliard. But for example, I got in and then I started in the very bottom ballet class where some of the people who entered with me were already kind of at one of the, some of the top or higher level technique classes. So I was technically weaker than a lot of them. But I was always, when we were doing performances, in the lead roles.
Okay.
Because the bottom line was, can you dance?
Can you dance? Yes.
Can you dance?
Yeah.
And so, but I appreciated them because they pushed me technically. And by the time I was up out of there, I felt like I could do anything. I was, ready.
Right.
Ready to be out there, But Juilliard was a very special time for me because I feel like even with Alvin Ailey, even with all of the things that I might have done after, I feel like it was just a high concentrated of excellence all around. Because of course, not only is there dance, there's music, there's the theater, there's drama. So, to gain a little extra money, I was ushering for drama plays, which starred people who are now stars of films, et cetera, like people that we see, So it was like a constant inspiration. And, just in dance alone, it was kind of a melting pot of incredible artists.
Wow.
Which was very different from Ailey, because there you have all different kinds of dancers that were just fabulous. You're brushing up against them and being influenced by them. Whereas Ailey, of course, Ailey is one of the most well-known, well-loved dance companies in the world. Very much celebrated. But I feel like Ailey has a particular sauce to it. Like we were representing Black excellence. Yeah. We all held ourselves in the same way. It seemed like, there was a kind of like a presence that was similar that we all had, They were hiring. You had to be, you had to have a physique that was not only extraordinary and you can do anything, but also very pleasing to the eye. Okay. Like they were, you know what I mean? Right. It was like they were putting forth, a certain image and trying to represent something very specific, which was also incredible.
Right.
I mean, I toured the world, 5 continents. I don't know how many countries,
Wow.
Always moving. It really put me into spaces that, I never would have been into. And even being here in France, I know it's because I was in that company,
right.
Coming here so many times and just traveling around so much. I was like, I feel like I need to be in Europe. That's what I kind of felt when I was, nearing the end of my stay there. I was like, I think I want to go and see what life is like over there. Maybe just a little bit, maybe for a year or two. We'll see.
Okay.
Here I am 17 years.
Yeah. Because I was going to ask you, so how did you get here? Other than by plane.
Right.
I know you didn't swim.
No, it was literally being on tour here. I've really felt like, I don't know, I think maybe when you're in America, I feel like when I tell people that I live in France and they have this specific vision of like what my life must be like, especially living in Paris, I think they think that I see the Eiffel Tower outside of my apartment. That's not the case, but there was, that ain't the case.
Nope. We have bills here too,
But I don't know. We spent so much time in Europe and there was definitely a different energy in the air that I vibe with. I was like, I kind of like this. I would love to explore that on my own for a little bit longer. And, I really think it was after my first trip in Africa. As well, my boss, Judith Jamison, she took me along with her to Senegal to do what was supposed to be a collaboration with some artists over there. It was my first time on the continent. And as it's a French-speaking country, I was trying to get some French in there. It kind of gave me the desire to speak French. And so it kind of, I don't know, it just kind of happened that way. I felt like it was a good place to give it a go. And here I am still.
Here you are still with a partner and 2 beautiful children and a wonderful career.
Yeah.
So just as we wrap this up, what is next for you? Artistically
What
speaking?
Is next? So, I mean, I feel like this is definitely a phase of transition for myself. And I feel like what is next is, I don't know if I should say this out in public, might be a move from here.
Mm-hmm.
Might be a move from here, because I think that with having a family, it has occurred to me that community is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is also linked to the mental health piece.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's linked to the freedom to be able to create
Mm-hmm.
a bit more. So I'm feeling like what's next for me is maybe kind of getting closer to a community.
Right.
And it doesn't speak to exactly artistically what that means, but I think that will define artistically what will come about. So I don't really know. I mean, I have some projects, and what I will say is what I've recently started doing, because I maybe I hadn't gone so much into like what a process might be for me, but a recent role that I have taken on is like a choreographic assistant,
Okay.
which is kind of fabulous. And here's why. It's because I've been a dancer for so long, and I have enjoyed and still do enjoy dancing for others, collaborating to put forth an image that a choreographer might have.
Mm-hmm.
I have also worked as a choreographer with my own visions, productions that I've wanted to put together, which has a whole plethora of its own challenges.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rewarding, but it's, you're taking on a whole lot and having to deal with a capitalistic system and how to kind of commodify what you're producing. But I still think it's worth it. And being a choreographic assistant, which I've just done in the past few months, is kind of like a collaboration of those two roles in the way that you have to have the eye of a choreographer and the vision of a choreographer. And you kind of have to have a certain empathy with what a dancer does as well. But you are like the Swiss Army knife of the whole thing, which, by the way, Motherhood equips you to do so well. And it's just a fabulous role because it's so plural. Like there's so many things that you do. You are the catalyst for a lot of the choreography. You have the distance to come in and say, this needs that we need to take out. And it's about having a relationship with the choreographer, seeing what they need and responding to that. And I think that it fits my temperament very well. I absolutely think I will continue to choreograph and to lead my own projects. But this is a nice little addition to some of the roles that I've already had. And so I would like to do more of that because I think that it also kind of frees me up with my time, whereas I cannot spend 12 weeks someplace as a choreographer doing something.
Right.
So I will come in as the assistant to help breathe life into a vision and to have the distance that the choreographer just has a hard time having.
Right.
And it's like the best of every world.
I really love that. I really love that. But then, of course, you generated one more question. I'm so sorry. But after this, I'll let you go. Because if there's more... No, you don't.
My kids are in school.
Okay.
I might go have a coffee after this. What can I do with my free time?
So much decadence, right? Time is decadence. It really is. It's like,
it is.
I could do so many things.
Savor it.
You know what? And what I really want to do is take a nap.
Right. Exactly.
The last question would be because, and this is really why I wanted you on the show, because you're so professional. And I'm like, I really want people to see what goes into being an A-list artist. I want to talk about your process of, let's say you're creating a role, how do you go into the preparation of that role and to executing it with excellence? Because that's what you do.
Well, thank you. Well, if it's creating a role for someone else, as I do a lot and something that I love doing, I observe. I come in there, ready to listen and to understand what the vision is and to lend myself to the process and to understand that I am there to instigate sometimes, to propose. When you're a dancer, especially nowadays, you're not just a dancer taking instructions. You are a collaborator.
Okay.
They need what you can bring. And so I also make sure that I am on time and that I know what I'm doing, that I've remembered what we've been doing. Those things are non-negotiables.
Right.
And that will keep you in a lengthy career. Now, as a creator, which is a very different thing, like I said, there are a lot more mountains to kind of climb. I am, as most artists are, constantly inspired by things, other art, music, texts, or just ideas, what's happening in the world, what's happening with me. And those are, stimuli for me. These are like, it's the stimulus for the motivation for creating. And so, the thing with dance versus music, I think is just that it takes a lot more time. Like I've been in the process with you guys and I was blown away with how fast things come together. The musicians, you guys have I don't know. It's just a different medium that has a different timing to it. But with dance, you have to get into a studio. You have to create the movement. You have to create the language, which takes a lot of trial and error. Are you working with a composer? Are you working with, what kind of elements are you working with? You have to be in constant communication with, is there a set? What kind of costume would you have? You're creating a world and it takes so much time. Just to give you a reference, like a normal creation for a production might take a year and a half.
Wow.
It might take a year and a half and it is extremely costly. And so this is where you get into like the kind of capitalistic aspect of it, is because, these productions, even a solo could cost 20,000 euros to produce, to put on, because you have to be paid for all of this trial and error, all of these rehearsals that you're doing. You can't just be up in there for free.
Now, see,
you know what I mean?
I will say this is where things differ, because people will tend to want us to do a production and not pay us for rehearsals, but they want us,
where they do that,
they want us to be rehearsed, but they don't always want to pay us for the rehearsals.
Nah.
And it's like, well, then you're paying for a crap project, because if I don't rehearse,
exactly,
it's not going to be any good. And if you don't pay me, I'm probably not going to rehearse the way I would normally rehearse. I mean, there's just a lot that goes into it. And
right. Your project will not be a priority of mine. I'm not saying that, I can't do it. I will not do it. Absolutely.
Right.
Maybe not, but it's definitely not going to be a priority if there's no money involved. So no, that's just the fact of the matter. Like, it's astounding that people don't pay you for, like we said, your time, because you have other stuff to do. We have other responsibilities.
Well, yeah, but just people think, well, I'm paying you for the performance. The performance includes all of the work that we've done before.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't just come out of a hat. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand. But so with dance, it's significantly there's more of a financial investment involved. And so then there's the whole process of you trying to convince the people that have the money that your artistry is worth investing in. Because like I said, it could be 20,000, it could be 50,000 if it's, only 3 people, these are sums of money that are very, that can get pretty expensive. So, that's, that is a challenge. And then like, if you do one successful piece, you're trying to, we know this story, this kind of hamster wheel that you can get on. If you have one good piece, well, you got to create some more and it's got to be good. Yeah. So, that's it's the whole, like, I think that brings kind of a existential question into our artistry. Like, is it good when people pay for it, or when they deem that it's worthy of their investment? Because of course, for them, it's a business. They're trying to see who is going to come see this. They're trying to get seats in the, people in the seats. And so, it's a tough endeavor, I would say, being the kind of the creative head of a project, and absolutely worth it. But it's not for the faint of heart. I've done it a few times and I would like to do it more. I'm not in love with the system.
Yeah.
Who is?
Yeah.
You know,
But you seem to have learned to negotiate it with grace and with calm and with clarity. You know, I've never seen you like frazzled or anything like that. And so
yeah.
so
Yeah. I think also it's kind of like what I said at a certain point. It's just that when you kind of go against, I mean, not being in love with the system, you know, you're still working within it.
Mhm.
So you kind of have to make peace with it in a certain way, or else you will suffer.
Right.
And if, you know, or if that's not where you feel like your strength lies, like I said, this like a different kind of way to create,
Mhm.
be it an assistant, or, you know, an assistant is not a lesser thing.
No.
It is quite badass, I have to say. Like it is being able to do so much more with so much more calm than than the person that's taking on all of the responsibility of the project. That if you're at a phase in your life, maybe that's a good option for you. And I feel like with the kids and trying to juggle all that I'm doing, that is just like me having cake and eating it.
Yes, because you want to eat the cake that you have. No, but you're right about having an assistant or being an assistant is a wonderful role, because I mean, I've just gotten an assistant, and my assistant, shout out to Carla Puccini, she's gold because she takes so much off my plate. She sees my blind spots. She allows me to be the best me that I can be. I'm so less stressed now that I have her. And, you know, she's her eyes are everywhere. And I'm like, how did you even see that? She's like, oh, no worries, I got it. And I'm like, and I know it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but she somehow has, and she's always smiling. So it's like she enjoys, she's always smiling, always happy. Like I said, you know, sometimes she'll send me a text. Did you know that this thing on your Facebook is doing this? And I'm like, no, I didn't. But how did you know? Her eyes are everywhere. And an assistant really, they're like, I don't know if I can say this, the Robin to Batman. I mean, they
but you know, it's kind of the secret sauce. I feel like it's like completely the secret sauce.
Listen, because without that, it's a very bitter sauce, because having to do all of that, then, well, again, you don't know what your blind spots are. So you're going to make mistakes, and you can't fully do the thing that you're actually good at, because you're doing all this other stuff like administrative things and just things that are not necessarily your forte.
Yeah.
Well, this has been such a great conversation. I think this is probably one of my favorite conversations with a non-singer, because understanding this process and just, you know, your mindset and your discipline that's led you to where there is no secret there. This is not, you know, this is not luck. You know, you didn't just manifest it up. You did the work.
No.
You did the work.
You have to be ready when it comes to you.
Yeah. Don't get ready. Stay ready.
I love that, because I love, that's one of my favorite phrases.
Yeah, stay ready.
Because it's so true. It's so true, you know. But also give yourself the grace when you're in a period where, you know, life is doing its thing. You've got little kids, or whatever that might be for you. Maybe you ain't got no kids. You don't have to have kids to have stress in your life. You know what I mean? Oh, gosh. There are a lot of ways to be stressed nowadays.
Yes, this is true.
Just to understand that, and there's a good Instagram account for that very sentiment. It's called Inspired to Write.
Inspired,
and it's about Inspired to Write, and it talks about how sometimes in life, just because you're not putting out art every day, because for whatever reason you're not able to, it does not mean that you're not an artist.
Right.
It does not call into question your validity as an artist, but it gives grace for kind of art being more of a profound part of who you are, just kind of like in your genetic makeup. And it's not because of your outfit, because, you know, in this society, it's, you know, sometimes it's all about like how much you know,
metrics,
all of that.
What's measurable? What's measurable? Yeah.
Exactly. And I love that account so much, because they just drop pearls left and right. Go in and look.
I'll look it up. I'll put it in the show notes.
But in the show notes, it's talking about writing, but it's applicable to every form of art or just in life or whatever.
Yeah.
It's so good. One of that, I took a screenshot of one of my favorite quotes from there. If I could pull it up really quickly, I know our time is limited.
No, it's your time because you got to go get that coffee and that nap.
I like this one. It's called, this is one quote. It says, "It's bigger than today, this week, this year. It's bigger than your social following, your sales, the next launch. It's a creative calling. It's holy, ordained art."
Ooh, I love it. And I think we will end it with that. I just love it.
Yes.
It is bigger. It is so much
It's bigger.
I think
it's a calling.
Art is not just tied to, what we produce, but you can live artfully, I honestly, when the periods in my life where I didn't feel like I was producing art, there was art, whether it was the way I did my makeup, the way I chose my clothing, my hair, the way I teach my lessons, because I'm a creative being, it's going to come out somewhere.
It's going to come out somewhere.
It's just in me. And so just allowing myself to have that, giving space to it and honoring that means that I don't feel like I'm missing so much when I'm not necessarily on stage or in the studio.
Right. That's so important. That's so important.
Well, thank you so much, Asha.
I missed you so much.
I missed you too.
Thank you for inviting me on because this is basically giving us the opportunity to have
it's the only way I can get
sit down.
Right. It's the only way I can get a chance to talk with you is to record it. So
I know. We'll have to do a part 2.
We'll have to do a part 2. Thank you so much. Go get your coffee and have a blessed day.
Ma'am. You too. Talk to you next time.
Asha is truly one of my favorite people to talk to and to work with because, as you can see, she's full of grace. And it's interesting that the word grace kept coming up in our discussion. She has got to be one of the most graceful dancers I've ever seen. I mean, she literally makes music with her body, and it just looks so effortless. And then she's also graceful with how she walks through life and how she deals with different challenges. My hope in sharing this unique episode with you is that perhaps you can gain some insight from looking at another type of artist. Often as singers, we study singers, and that's great. We study how they do things. But sometimes a fresh take is needed to give us enough of a boost or a nudge to maybe look at the problems in a very different way. And I think that Asha really presents a way of looking at artistry and dealing with the industry, dealing with changes in your life, changes in your body, and even dealing with rejection is very, very interesting. And it's something that you can hopefully take away from this. Now, it has come to my attention that the links that I put in some other episodes were having security issues. So just so you know, I am currently working on fixing them and they will be fixed in the very near future. So I do apologize for that. Hopefully you are enjoying this, and I really hope, because I need your help, y'all, that you're sharing this with people that you like, that you're taking notes, and that you're getting the information that you need to be your best artist self. Thank you so much for listening to this. Have a beautiful day. Musically, Monique.